It's nighttime on this beach on Costa Rica's southern Pacific coast. A female sea turtle buries her eggs in the sand, watched over by police officers who see wildlife protection as national duty. Once the turtle has disappeared back into the sea, they gather the eggs.
She made a nest, but there's a risk that the waves will wash it away. So we're taking the eggs out and putting them in an incubator.
This is a city administration initiative, and for this German expert, it's a model for the future. Michael Schlörenvogt is looking for ways to help protect Costa Rica's biodiversity. The landscape here is changing, sometimes very quickly. Here, for instance, several meters of coastline have disappeared in the past 3 months, after a large river altered its flow.
This is in part a result of climate change. There's an increase in rainfall intensity, but it's also a result of human intervention. If you look, you can see there are a lot of tree trunks moving in the river. Deforestation in higher areas in the highlands has increased the speed of the river's flow, and then the river floods more easily when it rains.
Predicting changes to the landscape and advising politicians is Michael Schlörenvogt's job. Today, he's in the capital, San Jose, to consult with Costa Rican authorities. His task is to help draw up guidelines for conservation areas, with a special focus on climate change.
Thanks to a gap analysis, we discovered that certain conservation areas are too small. They're not big enough to be able to adapt to the effects of climate change.
In order to protect the country's biodiversity, some of the conservation areas are to be connected with others, and the areas redrawn. So where should the new borders be, and how can conservation be carried out?
It all depends on the relationships we have to the fishermen and the local authorities. It's up to them whether we'll be able to expand these zones or not.
A coral reef in the Marion Hütter National Park. These corals look the way they're supposed to. The marine biologist is satisfied.
What a beautiful place. The reef is in very good shape, really nice. The corals look really good. The surface is perfect and there are lots of fish.
One of the reasons is that there are very strict rules in the national park. Snorkeling and looking is allowed, touching is strictly forbidden. Schlörenvogt points to the Marion Hütter National Park as a good example. Here, authorities were able to get local residents on board years ago, but only after dealing with angry protests. The fishermen were worried about their livelihoods.
A guard station was burned down in 1994. We don't know who did it. Maybe it was because of a conflict of interests. But today, the fishermen from the 1990s work as tour guides.
There are only a few fishing boats now out along the edge of the national park. Most of the fishermen have retrained as tour guides, and their new careers have changed the way they think.
It used to be that the national park meant we weren't allowed to fish. But later, and thanks to the training, we changed our minds. We now look at nature in a new way.
By taking tourists on whale watches, the former fisherman now earns 3 times as much as he used to. But in a nearby mangrove swamp, things aren't looking so good. There are dead trees marring the idyll.
Why are these trees so bare? What happened?
It's mainly from chemicals. They're sprayed on pineapple plantations here in the area, rice paddies too, and on the oil palm tree plantations here in front of us.
The problem is that agriculture is creeping too close to the conservation area. But there's no money to enforce laws and compensate local residents. But Schlönvogt has an idea.
We found out that up to 400 tons of CO2 per hectare can be absorbed. And here we have a total of 16,000 hectares of connected rainforest and mangrove swamp. So there's a huge capacity for absorbing CO2. We are now conducting a study to see if we can get the mangrove swamp into a RED process. We're very optimistic that it will happen.
RED stands for Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation, and is a kind of CO2 offset scheme. The credits could be used to preserve the mangrove swamp. Businesses are also being asked to do their part. The hotels depend on tourists who also come for the natural beauty. So here, an international hotel chain is sponsoring an initiative where children help reforest a section of the coastline. The trees will give shade and help fight erosion. It's an exemplary project, but many more are needed.
We assume that currently underfinancing of the entire conservation area system is at 100%. We have a budget of maybe $50 to $60 million a year provided by the Conservation Area Authority. But we really need around $100 million to manage everything properly.
In order to find the funds needed, the experts on the ground still need a lot more good ideas.